This is for Gardner McCrary at Christmas. It's called The Big Blue Thing on the Hill by Yuval Sommer. Far away from the city, in the middle of the great forest, is a special place called Howling Hill. It has always been peaceful and quiet until one night when a thing appears. It's blue, it's big, and the animals all agree that it has to go. The big blue thing on the hill. Far away from the city, in the middle of the great forest, was a special place called Howling Hill. During the day, it was peaceful and quiet because all the animals were asleep. But at night, the forest really came alive. Out came the foxes and the weasels. Out came the boars and the badgers. Growl! The bears lumbered out of their lairs to practice their growling. Howl! And the wolves crept out of their dens to practice their howling. All was well in the great forest at the foot of the Howling Hill until one night when something terrible happened. First there was a rumble. Then there was a roar, and finally a terrifying sight appeared right on top of Howling Hill. It's a meteorite, said the bears. It's a spaceship, said the wolves. It's trouble, said the foxes, and the foxes were right. So they all went to hide in the great forest, hoping that the trouble would soon be gone. Early the next morning, the animals crept back to the foot of Howling Hill, but the trouble was still there. It's a big blue elephant, said the weasels, who'd never seen an elephant before. It's a big blue dinosaur, said the badgers, equally bird-brained. It's a big blue thing, said the foxes, who were right again. And everyone agreed that it seemed to be awake and should probably be left alone until it fell asleep. Perhaps we can frighten it away, suggested the wolves when the animals returned at dusk. They waited for the moon to come up, and they howled and howled and howled at the big blue thing. Howl! Howl! But it did not move even 1 inch. Perhaps we can nudge it back down the hill, suggested the boars. They huffed and they puffed and they pushed and they shoved with all their might. But the big blue thing still didn't move, not even the tiniest bit. Let us try, suggested the bears. So they growled and they growled and they growled, and the big blue thing growled, but it still did not move, not even an inch. Growl. How about burying it, suggested the foxes. So the foxes, the badgers, and the weasels gathered around, and they dug and they dug and then dug some more. But just as it looked as though their plan might work, the big blue thing made a grumbling, rumbling noise. It's waking up, shouted the animals, and they all fled back to the safety of the great forest. No one knew what to do next, so they called a general forest meeting to ask the wise owls what to do about the problem of the big blue thing. After some hoots, hoots, and toots, and rather loud whoops, the wisest old owl announced the most clever plan. The wisest old owl explained, first, we summoned the help of our smallest forest friends, the bees and wasps, midges and skeeters, and we asked them to form a big bug flying squad. We could invite a snake or two along for good measure too. Then we wait until dawn, when the big blue thing starts to wake up. The squad must go inside the mouth of the beast, where they must whiz and buzz and buzz and whiz, and if necessary, nip and sting. Then it won't be long before that big blue thing is gone for good. So, as the sun peeked over the top of Howling Hill, a big black cloud of forest's finest bugs and a snake or two for good measure were ready to zoom in. They whizzed and they buzzed as they flew and crawled through every crack right inside the big blue thing. It didn't take long before it was clear that the wisest old owl had been right. With a roar and a rumble, the big blue thing turned tail and fled back down Howling Hill and away to wherever it had come from. Ouch! Ow! Ow! Yee! Gads! Hoo! Growl! Roar! Hoo! And while all the animals screeched and growled, roared and howled, snuffed and huffed, and generally made such a hullabaloo that it was heard for miles and miles. After that, things got back to normal in the great forest at the foot of Howling Hill, and every day was more peaceful and quiet once more until one fine night. Oh. The end.